Funding for the Hinckley Report is made possible in part by the George S. and Dolores Story Eccles Foundation and the Cleone Peterson Eccles Endowment Fund.
Tonight on the Hinckley Report, Alabama chose its next U.S. Senator in a contentious special election. Do the results reflect the changing dynamics of our country's politics? What does this mean for the future of the GOP and Utah's upcoming election? With just a few weeks until the new year, we are seeing major shakeups in Utah's House and Senate. What new faces will we see in leadership? How will it affect the most pressing issues of the upcoming legislative session? And what did the governor tap as his major budget priorities? Good evening, and welcome to the Hinckley Report. I'm Jason Perry, director of the Hinckley Institute of Politics. Covering the week, we have Laura Jones, host of Radioactive on KRCL, Glenn Beebe, political reporter with ABC4 Utah, and Rod Arquette, host of the Rod Arquette Show on KNRS. So glad to have you all with us.
Thank you.
There is no shortage of things to talk about in politics this week. Let's start with a national news item that may have a little impact on us here in the state of Utah, maybe a little foreshadowing as well. We're going to start with you, Rod. Roy Moore lost his seat.
Surprise, surprise.
So
right?
did you see this coming? And talk about why you did or didn't.
Bad candidate, bad candidate, bad candidate. I mean, it just comes down to he was a very bad candidate. In other races there in Alabama, he won, but the race was always very, very close. And, you know, the Democrats are celebrating, saying the start of the blue wave, but if they couldn't have beaten an accused pedophile who is lower than pond scum to most people in this country, it would have been a sad state of affairs. So not a surprise. You wondered a little bit. It was close. The write-ins really made a difference in this campaign. So it's just kind of an interesting race. But to bring it all down, he was just a bad candidate.
Well, he had some serious backing, too, though, right? Donald Trump himself went to the state.
I think he was kind of forced to do that. You have to, you know, a lot of people have talked about Bannon. Talk about the role Mitch McConnell played in all of this. Mitch McConnell, very strong, did not want Mo Brooks in it, tried to get Luther Strange, convinced Trump to go to Luther Strange when Strange was gone. I think Trump felt a little bit obligated. He's got to stand up for his guy, Roy Moore.
Was that it, Glenn? Because Luther Strange was the first pick.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how it went, I mean, I think he's right that Democrats shouldn't look at this as the giant blue wave, but it was an important race. I mean, they saw what happened when the African-American vote got out in huge numbers, and I think that's kind of a sign for Democrats that they need to concentrate on other aspects than what I think some Democrats are mad at as far as what they call the donor class or like corporate Democrats. But I think what we saw in that race when it did come to Strange and others was that it was amazing how close it was. And I think what was shocking for most was that I think a lot of people thought Moore was going to win.
So let's talk about, go ahead, Rod.
Well, there's a number there that the Republicans need to look at for 2018. 48% of the people who came out of the booth said they support Trump. Only 48%. In a very red state, his number should be upwards more than 65%, and it wasn't. So if there's one number there that should concern Republicans, it's Trump and the fact that it only got 48% approval in Alabama.
So Laura, to that point right there, so Alabama, pretty red state. The last 10 presidential elections sent a Republican. Is this the big change? Is it just about the candidate? Or
Roy Moore, horrible candidate. But I want to peel back the numbers in that about the grassroots and who got out the vote, who came out to vote. And you look at what really pushed Doug over the line, it was the African-American vote and in particular black women. And so if you look at it from a grassroots perspective, and that's what we're all about where I come from, it's getting out everyone to vote.
So this was a pretty monumental effort here. And you talk about the write-in, which was a huge percentage.
Well, he won by, what, 21,000, and there were 23,000 write-ins. So it shows a real interesting facet to that race, I think.
So I think it's so insightful.
A lot of people, Glenn, I can't vote for Jones, but I really can't vote for Moore either, so I'm just going to write in somebody else.
So maybe on this great idea you had here, Laura, because it's true, the turnout was great from groups that have not participated regularly. How did they get mobilized?
I think it's just been the whole last year and people realizing that it's it counts. They need to show up, and I'm interested to see what that means here in Utah, because we do have a supermajority here on the right, and so does that mean our left is going to start showing up? Are people going to start swaying that way or not? We'll see.
Well, let's show a graphic, because Hillary Clinton got into the mix on this one. I want to see what you think about this. She said, tonight, Alabama voters elected a senator who will make them proud, and if Democrats can win in Alabama, we can and must compete everywhere. Onward. Okay, break that one down, Glenn.
Okay, well, I think obviously you're not going to say, well, we won a squeaker in Alabama with a bad candidate. You're not going to say that. Of course, you're going to use it as a rallying cry. But I think this is kind of an offshoot in the same way that Brown winning in Massachusetts in 2010 was. I think a lot of Republicans, when that happened, said, oh, well, we can win in the deepest blue state in the country. We can win anywhere. And that didn't necessarily become the case in all the blue states after that. But this is definitely getting Democrats excited right as they're heading into 2018. But whether or not they'll be able to win in other deep red states has still to be seen, especially here in Utah.
Hillary, just go away. Just go away. but
Hillary, just go away.
Yeah, he made a good point. The other point, other than the Trump approval in Alabama, and Laura touched on this, enthusiasm. Can the Republicans generate the enthusiasm that they need to retain everything in 2018? It's going to be a real question.
So, Laura, even Jenny Wilson, who's running for the Senate, tweeted out about this, and she said almost the same thing that Hillary Clinton did, which it's time. This shows that it can happen.
Well, what we're seeing is that folks want to get involved more than just supporting a campaign. More and more people are opting to run for office. And that's what I want to see in Utah. I hate it whether it's the incumbent is a Republican or a Democrat if they run unopposed. Just drives me nuts. So I would be happy to see every contest, an actual contest.
Well, and I think that after the 2016 election, when you saw some razor-thin margins of people winning, not just the presidential race, but other lower races, people realized their vote truly does count. And I think that there's been a lot of issues that people have talked about that are getting people fired up, whether they are on the right or the left, but people are getting involved because they realize that they can put someone in office if they try hard enough.
Okay, I don't want to leave this for just a second because there's a couple more points you brought up as we began the show. One is Bannon, right? So Bannon has been picking people across the country. He picked Roy Moore.
Why does he get to pick people?
Yeah, why does he? What do you think?
I think that's what's turning a lot of people off and on at the same time, is that they're not going to let this one person in this part of the country decide what's going to happen in their neck of the woods. So I'm hoping to see his influence just start to dribble away.
So what do you think? After this example with Roy Moore, is his credibility kind of gone, or is he got lots of rounds left?
There are people who would like to show him the exit door, and there are people. It depends. I think what changed Alabama a little bit was when McConnell decided to get into the race, and the anti-establishment voters in Alabama said, you aren't coming here, you aren't telling us what to do. And the same thing could happen to Bannon. I think you saw a little bit of the kickback here in Utah when his name all of a sudden came up, and people were saying, we don't want you here. I mean, almost every state official said, we don't want Bannon here. Even the governor said. So I think Bannon's influence is not as strong as a lot of us tend to think it is sometimes.
And I think that when you look at Bannon, I think the difference between him is that he still has Breitbart. He still has this base and this anger, but a lot of Republicans are looking at that and saying, do I want to be associated with that? And just because he did a great job of getting Trump elected does not mean he can be a kingmaker and everything else. I think a great example is Karl Rove. Karl Rove did a great job getting George W. Bush elected twice, but then in about 2008 and 2012, you remember, he started an organization where he tried to get all these people elected, and I think out of all the money he spent, he got one race that was kind of going in his favor anyways. The rest he failed. So I don't think Bannon is this kingmaker everyone thinks he is.
Okay, which makes me have to ask the question about Trump. Is he kingmaker on any of these things now? So with Roy Moore, even if he wasn't exactly the first one in, at least he was advocating at the end. That's the second, I guess, if you count Luther Strange. Is it good to be attached to him as a candidate? You talk about Utah and then nationally. Laura?
I don't think so in Utah, but we'll have to wait and see. As we all saw in the election, McMullen popping up and giving people a place to go. if you don't agree with the president or his politics or his personal life.
It's hard to say his read, but you go out and talk to people who voted for him in 2016. They aren't that mad at him. He is doing some of the things that he said he would do. I mean, when even you have someone like Piers Morgan writing about Trump and saying, look, he's doing everything he told the public he would do. So his core supporters out there haven't left him yet. If he gets tax reform and if the economy continues on a roll in 2018, will that be enough? Will his coattails pull others in? It's yet to be seen.
Okay, you bring up a great point because tax reform is on the agenda, right? And with the vote maybe by the end of next week.
Yeah.
Okay, Glenn, how big of a deal is it for Trump and our own Orrin Hatch?
Oh, well, it's a huge deal because the Republicans need this. This is their big victory that they've been looking for. It's what they promised, as you talked about. He's doing everything that he says that he promised. He talked about a huge tax break. Now, whether or not that will help everyone, like he says, still remains to be seen. We haven't seen the CBO score on the new bill. But, and you talked about Orrin Hatch. For Orrin Hatch, he's always promised tax cuts and reforms throughout his career. And so as whether or not he ends his career in the next election, we don't know, but this would be a good note to go out on.
Does this make it more likely, Laura?
I don't know. I was just thinking about this is what Republicans want to do, but what do the people want?
Yeah.
And it's a grossly unpopular strategy that the Republicans are pursuing. It's still doing it despite public opposition to it. Will the children's tax credit be enough to get, was it Lee and Rubio?
And Rubio,
But
right.
also the tax on grad student tuition waivers. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that the public is not happy about.
I would disagree with that. I think it's too early to tell, to be real honest, because everybody is affected differently by this vote in every state and every community. It depends on your circumstances. Are you married? How many children do you have? What do you do? What state do you live in? People in California, New York, New Jersey, if SALT goes away, they're going to be angry. So it really, to sell this as a tax cut for everyone, and maybe not. It all depends on where you are, what you do, and where you live.
Well, how are Utahns feeling right now in all of your conversations about this tax credit? Rubio put the line in the sand. If you want my support, got to have this child tax credit, right? And Lee was kind of there also. So, Glenn, I know you were covering this a bit.
Yeah, well, for when we talk to people on the streets, for the most part, they hear tax cut and they think great because who doesn't, want a tax cut?
Yeah.
But I think for some of the details, it's confusing because what they've talked about so far may not necessarily be in the final bill. And when you hear about things that they may repeal the Obamacare mandate or they may, that's confused a lot of people on health care. Well, they still get some of the tax credits for health care. They're just confused on it in general. But for the most part, it sounds like they're somewhat in favor of it because they hear the word tax break and it's great. But I think for people that we've talked to, and we do ask this question, who did you vote for, or, how do you lean? For the most part, Democrats seem to be against it, and they tend to go on details and they tend to talk about things, tax break for the rich, they call it, and they feel that it won't get down to them or won't have as much of a benefit for them.
It feels like three-card Monty, though, trying to figure out the math to make the numbers add up, and reportedly Orrin Hatch saying that, and behind closed doors, that, we can make this add up if we do away with the individual tax cuts, let them fade a year early. So I think people hear that and they're going, where am I in the middle of this? And if I plug my numbers into these calculators that are popping up in different news outlets, you see your taxes going down by a bit, nothing significant, and then up a greater number by 2027.
Is anyone doing that?
I did it yesterday.
I guess you've done that.
Yeah.
I mean, because you brought this point up, Rod. This was one of those campaign promises. I will bring about some tax reform. Do we know really what's there?
I think part of the problem is, and Glenn just mentioned, nobody really knows for sure what it all means.
Not even the politicians.
Not even the politicians. I mean, it is, hate to say this, Obamacare all over again in many ways. Let's see what's in the bill before we do this. So it's hard for people to really see the benefits or what may happen to them until they see it down. And right now it is still, it's up in the air. And the Republicans and all that, the GOP has done a horrible job in creating a narrative as to why this bill should be in place. The Democrats have done a great job. They're standard fare. tax cut for the rich. The Republicans have never countered with a solid message as to why the country needs it.
And Rod just mentioned it. It's when he talks about Obamacare all over again. When we hear that, it's one-sided, and that's what it is. And I think one of the things that gets lost is the last time we had major tax reform was under Reagan, but he had a Democratic House and Senate. And the last time we had a surplus in this country was when we had a Democratic president and a Republican House and Senate. So I think the lesson is that one side doing all never works out. If you don't work, you have to work together to get real reform and real change, positive change done.
So it's a great point. What happens with this legislation if there's not a single Democrat that votes for it? It's passed with only Republicans for like today, but maybe since you brought up Obamacare, the next president or the next time it changes.
It becomes a great campaign point. And this is, I think, the problem for many in the public is this power struggle is about staying in office and not actually doing what the public needs to have done on their behalf. And I think the public's getting sick and tired of it. But will that play out at the polls? Who knows?
Well, and you'll see, and you've seen this in the polls of the millennials, they are so sick and tired of the party structures. They really are. They want something done. And I think, agreeing with Laura here, that's what the public wants. Just get something done.
But that doesn't work if you want to get reelected.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You got to be able to sacrifice, say, I'm going to go along with this. That probably won't get you reelected. And that's the struggle the country is facing right now.
Is this the struggle that leadership in the Republican Party are having in D.C. then?
Oh, sure.
Leadership everywhere.
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats, whether it's a Democratic issue or a Republican issue, it's, as you guys said, it's somewhat this tribalism sometimes that you see, that you have to go along with the party, and or else, you won't get the donations, you won't get the money, you got to get reelected, especially for people in Congress. They have to run every single 2 years. So it's tough for them. And she had mentioned it's a campaign issue. I think that Democrats and Republicans are already gearing up their messages. Republicans, if they do pass it, are going to say, I fought to give you tax breaks to get the government off your back. Democrats are already going to go line by line and say they cut this, they cut this, they cut child tax credits. I mean, they're already preparing.
The whole tax thing was interesting. If you look at the numbers, there are, I think the number I saw the other day, 6,500 registered lobbyists in Washington.
Wow.
That is 11 lobbyists for every lawmaker.
That ought to do it.
Someone said to me this week, you can't find a hotel room right now in Washington because the lobbyists all have them because they're lobbying everybody to get what they want in this tax bill. That's what the public is tired of.
The only thing certain in life, death, taxes, and lobbyists. Pretty much.
That's the way it is in Washington.
We've got to hear.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some changes happening in our own legislature. Some interesting high-profile individuals are leaving, which doesn't really just happen as often as you might think. We're losing Senator Brian Shiazawa, our emergency room physician, a very strong leader in the Senate.
Oh, wow. Especially in the healthcare advocate community and disabled rights action committee community, I think that's a real blow. And they're wondering who's going to step up and fill that void.
And I think it's a blow, as you said, it to the entire legislature, because even Democrats would go to him for advice, and Republicans did as well. And having the medical expertise on the floor with you is always a benefit when you're taking on a complicated subject like healthcare.
Which he routinely did. It's true. Interestingly enough, Kathy Allen has indicated she steps right in. She was a candidate for the 3rd Congressional District.
Yeah, she was. It was an interesting race to watch, and now she's jumping right in. Will she be able to do this? I don't know, because a lot of negatives came up in her campaign for her, and I think it was part of being a first-time candidate. I believe that was the first time she ran.
It was, but also...
and I'm hearing from some Democrats as well, she's not the strongest candidate we want in there, maybe. Maybe there are others, because they weren't happy with the campaign that she ran.
But I applaud her for running, for saying, I'm
going
to go again.
It's good. Let's not forget she got out the vote in parts of Salt Lake County and stuff. So she showed that you can get out the vote if you try here in Utah. Whether or not she's the candidate remains to be seen.
Also losing Dean Sanpay, who has been the chair of the Executive Appropriations Committee for some time, leaving the state as well. These shakeups that are coming sort of in the middle of the campaign here, do you see this as being a trend for some of these public officials wanting to get out?
No, I see it more as how ossification, if I can use that as a phrase, happens in every party, whether it's a supermajority on the right or the left. And folks just reach the end of their time in office, and I don't think people should stay there and make it a career. And I think that's part of the problem, that the public is starting to say, you know what? Too many times, and we're starting to see why polarization happens, why entrenched power causes campaigning all the time as opposed to doing the people's work.
You're seeing that a lot, especially on the Republicans in the House. There's the debate over can the Democrats win control of the House and the Senate. On the House side, you've got a lot of longtime Republicans who are leaving, who've just, all over the country who said, I've had it, or, it's just time for me to move on.
Paul Ryan, maybe.
Yeah, Paul,
Yep.
but
he's kind of backtracking today, but that's been the discussion the last few days, right?
That's cocktail talk in Washington. That's all that is right
it's
now.
not because he's going to run for president?
No, he's not going to run for president.
Okay.
I don't think he wants to be president. But you have and it goes along, I think, with what Laura was saying is the public wants change. The public is tired of what's been going on. They want change. And I think there are some lawmakers who realize, maybe I have been here a little too long. I can do other things now.
And I think sometimes you wonder, though, what will happen. I mean, I think when you look at some place like Washington, D.C., for example, when a lot of older statesmen, you could call them, started leaving, some people say that, normal rules and normal things started kind of going out the window, that things changed. But as you said, maybe that's the change that people want. They want to see a radical change in how things are done because, as we've been talking about, it seems like most voters are just kind of fed up with the status quo. And not that we're seeing that so much here, but that change can be good.
But are they ready to enact that change? Because it's up to the public to enact that change. And are we getting close to a throw the bums out mentality? I don't know. We could be.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting to bring up because research has shown 90% of the incumbents get reelected again.
Yeah. It's not my guy, it's your guy.
Yeah, it's like,
we
really? You're all crying for change, yet you won't make the change because my guy's still in there fighting.
We want everyone else's guy, their person out. Let's talk about the governor's budget that was just released this week. The revenues look great. $382 million of new ongoing revenue projected for the state for them to spread out over the next legislative session to give love around the state. What's interesting is the governor put a significant amount of money into public education, $275 million more.
It's a significant number, but is it enough to forestall the ballot initiative, our schools? That's going to be
so that really is the big question. Right? That's a big amount of money. It's the majority of the new ongoing revenue. 72% is right. That's how it breaks down. But is it enough? That is the question. Are you going to tell us?
I don't know. I mean, you have 5 ballot initiatives potentially, and that speaks volumes about what the public and certain special interests think lawmakers are doing or not doing. So I think if you put it in the hands of the public, more money for education for our kids. It makes a lot of sense. Also on medical marijuana, also on better boundaries. All of these initiatives that I think reflects that the public thinks the lawmakers aren't paying attention, aren't making the hard decisions.
Yeah.
Well, because lately the narrative has been Utah's near the bottom in per pupil funding. And so when you have a narrative like that, you have to do something to change it. And it's not just this year. The governor has put more money towards education over the last several years. But whether or not it'll be enough to stave off this ballot initiative remains to be seen, because I think any time you have education on the ballot, it tends to get a yes vote.
He may be trying to stave off the ballot initiative with
Well,
this. I mean, if you look at this, the public's going to say, wait a minute. Of the $16.7 billion for the budget, $9 billion of that goes to education. I mean, all of education. And people look at it, more than half of $16.7 billion is going to education. I ask, how much more do they need? And we do have a challenge. I mean, we have another, 7,700 new kids coming into school in the coming school year. We've got to figure out how to pay for that. But is it going to backfire a little bit? And people are going to say, how much more do you want? When are you going to be satisfied? Because I've lived here since 1979. Every year, education needs more money. And when does it end?
Yeah, so let's talk about this initiative that you were talking about. Laura mentioned it at first. If that initiative gets passed, the dollar amounts for education is much higher than what the governor just put in there. Glenn, is Rod right? Are we trying to find that sweet spot where, I guess, we spent the right amounts, maybe not enough, but will it keep these people from going forward?
Well, because stats have shown that not necessarily putting a bunch of money towards education doesn't mean that you're going to get great outcomes. And I think if you look here in the state, when you look at science and some other topics, we do great. But there's also a big struggle. We have a huge teacher shortage here in the state. Teacher pay is a huge issue. We're losing people to California and Washington all the time. And so there's a lot of different aspects. Some of it's at the local level, some of it's at the state, but I think in the end it probably won't be enough to stave this off, because when people see the low numbers, no one wants to be in the 40s or 50 or near 50 when it comes to per pupil spending. And the point is that we're in a world now where our kids are going to have to compete with everyone else around the world, kids in China, kids in Europe, and that is going to take a new way of thinking. And also, there's just so much new technology that they have to be accustomed to, and so unfortunately, it's expensive.
You know, I think the mistake the our schools now people made, to be real honest, why not call it our students now? Focus on the students, because when is how much are they out there talking about we're going to change to focus on the student and the student's success? And until I think people are convinced that is going to help the student, then okay, maybe I'll think about it. But this our schools now, the perception out there is a lot of this money goes to administrative expenses and programs that aren't working. And until you get down to the bare bottom of all of this and say, this is helping the student, and I'll show you how, I think the public's going to be reluctant.
I think the initiative makes it all the way to the ballot for the public to decide, because I don't think the bad taste in the mouths of people overcount my vote. And backing off from that ballot initiative when they thought they had a good compromise, I think that's a bad taste for the behind-the-scenes players on that, and they're going to take it all the way to the public.
Okay, that's going to have to be the last comment on this. Thank you for your great insights tonight. That's it for tonight's show. The conversation continues online at kued.org/Hinckley Report. We'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.